All righty, there you go. Thank you very much, Jaime. All yours.
Okay, no problem. Well, I hope everyone had a good lunch. So my talk today is going to be highlighting the collaborative efforts between the Chicago Center Local Safety Weather Team and then the meteorologists in the CWC with Chicago Center, again in Aurora, Illinois. Helps if I'm on the right screen. There we go. So a little background on our local safety weather team. So it is a sub-team of the ZAU or Chicago Center Local Safety Council. FAA regulations say that every center needs to have a local safety council. And we went above and beyond that and made a sub-team, which is the weather team, that was formed in 2007. And it was formed to address weather dissemination and develop a recommendation for weather-related tools for ZAU. It's made up of NACA controllers, operational supervisors, and then weather service meteorologists. So very much a collaborative effort, which is what the next slide is. So we're bringing our two areas of expertise, air traffic and meteorology. We're bringing them together to help everyone follow the directives and the rules of the FAA, but then also understand weather and help pilots out in various weather situations. So with this collaborative process, we want to help controllers understand how weather influences air traffic and then the various weather products that are out there. What are the negative impacts of not depicting weather? And then also make it easier for controllers to meet required responsibilities, like I said. So we're going to go over a few projects that we've done. The one was a series of short refresher videos that all of the controllers had to view, whether they were certified already or just trainees. For the certified controllers, it was more of a refresher on what's expected and how you're supposed to be saying things. So example here is for TCF, traffic flow management or convective forecast. So we went over what are these various products, how are you supposed to say them, what do they mean? These products also show up in our pre-duty weather briefings that all the controllers need to view before taking shift. So the topics were TCF, as you see here, airmets, convective sigmets, non-convective sigmets, CWAs. I think I got all of them. So example here for TCF, and the reason I'm showing TCF is for the average controller, they don't really interact with TCF, but it's something we show in the pre-duty weather briefing. So we want to make sure when we show it, they understand why they're seeing it. So in this case, we're looking at a lot of convection down over the deep south and just highlighting what do the different areas mean, what does a line of weather mean, all that kind of stuff. There was a video here, but since I know videos aren't playing well, I'm not going to hit play on it. It was going to highlight one of the controllers reading through what are the requirements for the controllers as far as reading these hazards or broadcasting them to the pilots. So you can kind of make out the text there. It says phraseology, and it says, for instance, you have to say attention all aircraft, hazard weather information. Is it a SIGMET, convective SIGMET, airmet, urgent PIREP, or center weather advisory? What's the number or numbers? The new thing was what's the specific weather phenomenon and what's the geographical area? And then that is available in IWAWS or flight service frequencies. Then they went into the FAA regulations to show this is why you're required to say these things. So again, it's to jog controllers' memories of this is what was required of you and this is how you need to be saying it, whether this is day one or you've been doing this for 10 plus years. Other projects we've done were some safety discussions. So before COVID, we would have monthly safety discussions. Usually FAA headquarters sends out a topic of the month, but if we have something local we want to work on, we can make a topic. So with the Safety Council and the weather team, we've done a few of these safety discussions. This is the most recent one, was May of last year. It was talking about splitting positions for weather and why controllers should think about doing it. I'll get a little bit into that later. But some other topics were weather deviation procedures, icing, and then we did a big warp standardization project where we standardized all of the warp displays in all the areas across the center. And I'll show you some pictures of that coming up as well. So with that safety discussion about splitting sectors, the big question we wanted the controllers to discuss was what weather services are you expected to provide day in, day out, regardless of weather. So we had a list of those show up on a slide. And then we talked about now add weather into your daily routine. which one of those are you not going to be able to provide because you're focusing on keeping pilots safe and out of hazardous weather? And the idea was to help them understand why they need to be proactive about splitting sectors. There's a video on the right, which again, I'm not going to hit play, but I believe they've posted either in the Join Me or it's also on Twitter. And it's a cool video. I recommend looking at it. It shows convection back in, I believe, 2018, if I can read the blurry time up there. Convection across CAU, the red little dots, those are inbound planes through O'Hare. And then there will be some black dots coming out of O'Hare. Those are departures out of O'Hare. And it really depicts why, when convection is going through the airspace, how quickly things can change. You've got holding, some sector has a ton of weather, so there's no traffic, so another sector is very busy. All of a sudden, all these departures come out of O'Hare. And so sectors that weren't busy are now overwhelmed with departures. So it's just another way to visualize how quickly things change when weather is active in the airspace. Then on the left, this is an example of the warp displays we created. We standardized them by showing 2 satellite imageries and 2 radar images, and then we went over what things they're going to see on the individual displays, just so this is on a big screen in the areas, and this is extra information the controllers do not have necessarily on their scopes. So things like lightning, tornado warnings, PIREPs for icing and turbulence, a center weather advisory, SIGMETs, things like that. So it's training for all the areas to understand why did we standardize it, how you should be using it. So when you come back from your break, take a look and update yourself on the weather, and then talk to the person you're relieving. So more weather awareness. When it came to disseminating weather products, something else we wanted to help the controllers with was making it more efficient so they're more likely to comply with the rules. So on the top is a convective SIGMET, and the bottom is a CWA. So one thing they both have in common is very detailed location as to where these 2 products are valid for. But I can imagine reading that aloud to pilots is going to take some time and could be confusing. In my mind, coming from a forecasting background, that's like communicating a convective warning, a tornado warning, using just latitude and longitude. Not super helpful to everyone. The difference is with a SIGMET also lists what states it's valid for. So most people, I think, can know what state that they're in. So what we did with the CWA is pretty easy. We just added states at the end. So no information was lost. We just added states. And if you recall back at the beginning, we talked about phraseology. When a controller broadcasts a CWA or SIGMET, they just have to say geographical area. So now we made it easier for them by just having to say, in this case, Lake Michigan and the state of Michigan. So we made it easier and familiar equal to increased compliance. We've also collaborated and made some adjustments to our pre-duty weather briefing. Again, that's a product all operational FAA employees have to watch within ZAU, actually within every center, before taking position. So at the end previously, we just showed O'Hare's TAF. O'Hare does dictate most of the traffic in ZAU, but we know it's not the only terminal. So we borrowed some scripting from Kansas City Center and made these, this is an example of one chart we show. This is for Eastern ZAU. There's also a Western ZAU version. And I know it may look overwhelming, but I purposely picked one so you could see all the data for this date in particular for all these sites across Eastern ZAU. And the idea is when we do the pre-duty, we mainly just talk about O'Hare Midway, but any other center who's required to watch this, they can get a snapshot of their TAF as well for their shift. We've gotten some pretty positive feedback from underlying facilities about this. Now the big thing we've done is Weather Week. This is where we have trainees in the building, and we're trying to get them trained up to take position and start training with controllers. But for Weather Week, we want to focus on weather. So the big question was, when do controllers learn about weather? Well, they learn about it if they take a college course. And if they don't take a college course, there's a week-long class at the FAA Academy in Oklahoma City. In addition to that, they learn about weather on position. Otherwise, there's guidance and phraseology provided in the FAA documentation, specifically the 7110.65. But that's about it. So we decided as a weather team, we're going to put a little bit more weather information or even a recap, if it's been a while since they've had weather, before they hit the floor. So the first step is stage 3, which I know doesn't make sense, but stage 3 is where we talk about weather. And it's to expose trainees to the CWSU and the meteorologists that work there, and then various weather products. So the meteorologists actually teach the class. Every morning we've got a PowerPoint we go through with the trainees. So they see us, they realize we're not the scary people next to the traffic management unit. We're actual people, and they can come talk to us about weather. We discuss how weather impacts their job, and it's pretty funny when I ask that question on the first day of class, or even every day, how does this weather phenomenon we're going to discuss today impact your job? And I get blank stares. It is 8 o'clock in the morning, and it is cold in that room. Actually, it's pretty hot in that room. So I understand that they're tired. I don't want to throw the trainees under the bus here, but we want to help them understand this is important for you to be successful at your job. We give them pilot perspectives. What are pilots seeing? Maybe that's why they're requesting a deviation you don't see on your scope. And we're setting expectations that you are responsible for knowing the weather every time before you take position. So we're trying to get good habits into these new trainees. We afford trainees the opportunity to practice weather-related phraseology and techniques before they reach the floor. So it's a good place, a safe place to make mistakes and learn lessons. And then we stress the importance of soliciting and disseminating PIREPs and calling depicted weather. So some of the things we go over, this is a little bit of a messy chart. We go over air mats. What are air mats? What are the different ones called? What do they represent? Where do you find them? Our good friend TCF is back, so trainees get to see it here as well. Even though it's something they're not going to use day to day, we want them to have awareness of it. SIGMETs and CWAs, we remind them that these hold the same amount of weight and they have to broadcast both of them. And then the big question, like we saw in the videos before, how do you read this? We make them practice so they've got the phraseology down. So that was day 1. Day 2 of the 5 days of stage 3 is turbulence. So we go over our local forecast. I know a couple presentations earlier talked about using local knowledge to create local products to help out the local center. So in our case, we create local turbulence forecasts. In this case, there was severe turbulence possible in the forecast. We teach them that even though convection's not within ZAU, it can definitely impact ZAU. In the picture on the upper right, the blue dots are some moderate turbulence reports, and the red dots are some severe turbulence reports. So again, convection's over Missouri, but we're experiencing the turbulence from it. And then we also go over our jet chart. Day 3 is icing. So we talk about what causes icing, where to expect it. Again, our local forecast there on the bottom. And then the impacts of icing, whether it's this is what severe icing looks like. So when someone reports it, this is what they're dealing with. And then what are the impacts of that on the aircraft itself. Day 4 is thunderstorms. We get our fair share of those here in the Midwest. So again, our local forecast, why this is going to differ from TCF on most days. Where TCF, we need to meet certain criteria. We know pretty much any thunderstorm is going to impact traffic in ZAU. So it's going to have some more thunder in it in our local forecast. What are the different stages of thunderstorms? How does that impact air traffic? For instance, in a developing stage, that's when you may get some deviations, but you don't see anything on your scope. Well, they hit an updraft. And you could also have some turbulence reports. Why is it important to keep planes out of a mature stage of a thunderstorm? There's definitely turbulence and icing going on with an updraft and downdraft and all that moisture. And then the dissipating stage. Then again, what are the impacts of flying through thunderstorms? We've got some pictures of, we have a picture of a plane that flew through some hail and what that did to it. And then I also like to say on this picture on the bottom right, if you do not want to be the controller controlling that airplane so close to a tornado. Part of me wonders if those are water spouts. We do get those over Lake Michigan, but the point is you don't want to be the person that has a plane that close to any sort of water spout, funnel cloud, or tornado. We talk about also, even if you keep them out of the tornado, there still could be debris up there. You just want nothing to do with this. We go over the pre-duty weather briefing, why it's important for them to watch, what they're going to expect out of it. We also try to get some feedback out of them so we can keep improving things. Other briefing tools, on the last day, they're required to come attend our morning stand-up briefing, just so they can see what all the supervisors go through. On the right-hand side, that is our weather sheet we create and hand out 3 times a day. So it should be on the desk in the area so they can view it and get an update, even though these are the same graphics they're going to be in that pre-duty weather briefing, but still we want them to be familiar with this. On the left-hand side is our website. So in a pinch, they can also look at the forecast there and access the pre-duty weather briefing. On the bottom left, is that warp display again. So we go over that just to make sure they understand what the warp display is showing and how to use it. And then we also go over CWIS, which is in all the different areas. Really useful tool. So the new thing is stage 4. So that was stage 3 we just covered. Stage 4 is we're still putting the finishing touches on it, but it's another week we can have with the trainees. And we're going to ask the controllers to work simulations that require them to issue depicted weather, practice broadcasting advisories, work deviations, solicit and issue PIREPs, review best practices and techniques, and then that was the last bullet. So again, it's not only teaching them about weather, but it's good habits, good recognition. We want to set them up for success when they become controllers. So that's what I had today. This is a list of the current team members. On the FAA side, Rick Seeplick, he runs the team. He's our team lead. So if anyone has any questions, Rick honestly loves getting email about his weather team and some of the stuff we're doing. So if you have any questions, please email him down there. And then my email is also listed on the right-hand side, and I will happily take any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Jamie, for an excellent presentation. We have one question here, actually from Sarah. How long are your controller education briefings?
That's a good question. I forgot to mention that. They're very short. Those briefings, a series of briefings where I think they came out 3 minutes or less apiece. So we want to keep them short and sweet.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, one other one just popped in here. Did the local safety council ask for the or yearly weather briefing? How has the controller feedback been on the weather training? Do they say, oh, we didn't learn this in the FAA OKC, or do they feel like they already know many things?
It's usually a mixed crowd. You've got some who come straight from the academy, and so they had their weather training there, so it might be a little bit more fresh in their memory. There are some that maybe had it in college, so it's a little far removed. And not everyone's extremely weather savvy. We're very lucky with our FAA team that helps us on the team that these guys could predict weather with us. They're really weather savvy. So I think it's a matter of how much they understand coming into it, weather's going to impact their jobs. So I think at the end, they have a better understanding, at least of these are the products at my disposal. These are the things I'm expected to do. But I'd have to ask Rick if he's heard any specific feedback from the trainees themselves, though. He usually hears back, and I don't know if he necessarily shares it with me.
All right, thank you. I am seeing no other questions right now, but you all have Jamie's contact information. And with that, we're going to be passing it over to Shar. And Shar, I just unmuted you, so you should be good to go over there.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, if you don't mind, I'm just going to